And I'm going to now hand over to our final session. So we're going to hear from Richard Brown about Open UK and the sorts of work and thinking that's coming through Open UK. So over to you, Richard.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much to everyone who presented in that last session. I think that really does speak to everything that we're all about. I challenge anybody that works in the field of epilepsy to have listened to that last session and to have had any other response other than looking at their own practice and thinking, how can I do things better? How can I listen to the voice of children, young people, experts by experience, and the evidence, and what can I do better? So I think those are the questions that we're asking about all sorts of parts of epilepsy care, but I thought that was a brilliant presentation, and thank you so much. Also, we have learnt that it is Venna's birthday, so we are hugely grateful to Venna for presenting today on your birthday, and so you've not only made a difference, but you've also given us your time on your birthday, so we're really grateful. Thank you very much. I am going to now share my screen, which is always nervous times for everyone. In fact, Colin said that earlier on. Colin said, it's always difficult sitting next to Richard because you never know what he's going to say next. So I'm quite enjoying the fact that I appear to be the renegade of epilepsy quality improvement, a field not known for its renegade behavior. I just want to highlight the very important news that we're basically into autumn now, and that you ought to be thinking about warm soups, such as butternut squash and pumpkin soups, and it's time to put the gazpacho away, okay? And I think that we can learn from this that actually it's probably time for us to do something face-to-face in Open UK. I miss us getting together. I miss us sitting together, eating soup. And although it is absolutely amazing to have 500 people here in the meeting today, I think we can all agree that it would be better with soup. So I hope next year that we can physically see each other again. I don't really know quite what to do about the dog because I have got the dog here, but she is absolutely massive now. So I promised that I'm going to try to introduce you to the tiny little sweet puppy that you met at a previous conference, but it's going to be tricky. Hang on, come here. Come here, come on, come here. There we go. That's it. Come on, up you come. Absolutely massive. There we go. So the very sweet little tiny puppy that you met at the previous conference is now absolutely massive, and so this might be the last time that you ever get to see her on camera because she ain't getting any smaller, and it's nearly impossible to pick her up. So I think that's it. That's enough of you. Oh, right. So a bit out of breath now after all of that. Open UK. So we started this. It's nearly 7 years ago now, isn't it? And we're still all about all of this. So we're encouraging collaboration, and we now collaborate, I think, with all of the major players in epilepsy quality improvement. And we try to be the voice of all of you that look after children and young people with epilepsy. We try to share good practice. We try to encourage the production of good resources. And we set out to be a professional body to which other organizations could come for information support and, of course, clinical input. And I think that what this has meant is that over the years, we've banged on about quite a lot of things, and we've set an agenda, and we've passionately made a case. and tried to speak to the evidence to show what the gap is between what good practice should be and what we're actually doing in the NHS at present. And I think that over the course of the last few months, over the course of the last year, we have really seen progress in that. And I think that what we've been shouting for is starting to arrive. So this is the so what I'm speaking to here is the arrival of the NHS transformation process, and I'm really grateful to Simon Kenny and Richard Owen and Jaffa Ismail, who spoke to us earlier on and outlined the type of process that has been initiated. And I will be the first to say that when the structure of this first was described to me, I was a little shocked. I couldn't understand how we could do quality improvement without it all flowing through the existing regional epilepsy networks. But I think I've come to terms with that, actually. I think that what we can see is the opportunity for the regional epilepsy networks to work hand in hand with NHS England, within England, in order to deliver better quality care for our patients. So as they outlined, there are 4 working groups. So broadly speaking, these are around mental health, transition, the epilepsy surgery and other specialist services, and the variation in care working group. And the variation in care working group I chair, and so a little bit like in Harry Potter, where you have the brave Gryffindor, you have the clever Ravenclaw, you have the evil Slytherin, then we are the miscellaneous, the Hufflepuff of the working groups. So clearly the variation in access to epilepsy specialist nurses is our core business, but because we have quite a wide remit, and to an extent we can set our own remit, then actually the variation in care group will be able to capture quite a lot of the quite a lot of those things that we need to improve with and measure with the Epilepsy12 national audit. Again, as they said in the NHS England presentation, there are 7 NHS regions, and each of them has appointed paediatric epilepsy leadership. Sometimes that's 1 person, sometimes that's 2 people, a doctor and a specialist nurse, and in some instances 3 people have been appointed to those positions. Again, the precise remit and exactly how those people are going to be working has not been fully fleshed out yet, but we're all going to have to work closely with the 7 regional leads, with the 7 regional leadership groups, in order to deliver better care for our patients. So I think that this is the call to arms. Between now and the next Open UK National Conference, the regional leads in your area are going to start trying to deliver improvement, and they're not going to get anywhere without you. So my suggestion is that engage with what they're doing, approach them, seek to get involved with the NHS England processes where you are. And if they come to you, then work with them to try and secure the commissioning, the agreement from operational teams, the space in your clinics, the extra staff, whatever it may be that takes quality of care further forward. So I think that it is fantastic that we have the ear of NHS England, and this is perhaps a once in a career opportunity to really influence how care is delivered in the UK. If you're not in England, then you won't have access to any of these regional leadership groups. but this is the time where we need to make this sing in Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland. How can this be helpful in the cases that you make for improvement in care? So how can we use this this NHS England system to speak to the health boards and ministers and say, well, there are things that can be learnt from this, and of course it works the other way. Many of the systems and processes in Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland are things that need to be emulated within NHS England. I think that we need to speak with a loud voice on the issue of health tech. So I think it's probably fair to say that in terms of health tech, we're operating in the last century in the world of epilepsy at the moment. There is much more that we can do. There's much more that we can do with data, with apps, with technology, seizure detection, and in terms of how we deliver drugs and how we improve treatment. So I think that it's up to all of us to advocate for improvements in health tech. And I would encourage you to work with your regional epilepsy network, communicate to the chair or the lead of your regional epilepsy network, who can feed into Open UK at our national working group. And from there, we can influence all of the major bodies around the UK. So, for example, Helen Cross chairs the neuroscience theme of the NIHR Children and Young People MedTech consortium. We need to have a voice there that says this is the health tech that we need within epilepsy, and we need to ultimately access the grants and the funding applications that will provoke that that improvement in health tech to come our way. I've saluted Epilepsy12 before into this afternoon, but it's incredibly important that we highlight, that we shine a light on how important Epilepsy12 data is in everything that's going to happen in the next 10 years in terms of improving quality of care. NHS England are measuring against Epilepsy12 data. Epilepsy12 has been flexible, and they've produced data packs that is cut according to NHS England boundaries. When we are making a case for improvement, we are going to need to show the gap using Epilepsy12 data, and then we're going to have to justify what we do by showing an improvement over time. So please do what you can within your units to participate within Epilepsy12, look at Epilepsy12 data, action plan against it, and that is something that we should be doing at trust level, but also at regional level as well. So please take your data to your regional epilepsy network meetings and make sure that you're benchmarking against your colleagues around the region, and that you're all striving to improve quality of care. Just a quick couple of adverts. The Children's Epilepsy Surgery Service is 10 years old, and on November the 24th, there is a 10-year celebration event that will take place in Charfield in Gloucestershire, which is just north of Bristol. It's an in-person event, so there's no online component to it. And at some point in the next couple of days, you'll get an Eventbrite, you'll get an email through from Open UK, and I hope that it'll be sent out to all those of you that have attended the conference, that will enable you to book into the conference. There will be some absolutely fantastic speakers, and as we've said before, that's one of the 4 themes that we're looking at. I just want to talk briefly about genomics. So Alistair Parker said in the BPNA conference earlier this year that in terms of genomics, we're in the best of times and the worst of times. So we all now have access to genomic investigations but it's incredibly difficult to consent people, very time consuming to fill in all the forms and to arrange the tests, and the huge variation in access to these tests across the UK in terms of secondary and tertiary care. So I have developed a course on the early investigation of the genetic epilepsies, which I developed with Alistair Parker. It's got lots of nice audiovisual components to it. So we're talking about how to make early genetic diagnoses. We're trying to shorten the diagnostic odyssey, make investigation less invasive, and to use genetic investigations in order that we can identify treatable epilepsies. And we're talking about how, you know, those pathways could be put into place in your local services. We've delivered 11 or 12 of these courses so far around the UK, and we've learned a lot about how the National Genomics Directory is impacting on care delivery. And I'd just like to say that we have some courses approaching. So if you'd like to send me an email at richard.brown@addenbrooks.nhs.uk, then I'd be very glad to secure you a place on one of these free courses. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that if you were good, then I would show you a photo of the president of the British Paediatric Neurology Association wearing a unicorn headband. And because you've all been very good little soldiers, I'd just like to reward you with this. I think we can all acknowledge that that is a once in a lifetime photograph. On that bombshell, thank you very much. And I shall hand back to Colin.
That's an image that's not going to go away. I think something imprinted on our minds now. Thanks for sharing and for letting us get a catch up on your dog, Richard, as well. It was so funny seeing you so breathless after that encounter. So yeah, so thanks. That's a really good synopsis of Open UK and its perspective and ability to both sense and bring about motor changes as well. I don't know whether anyone's got any questions for Richard, but I think this issue around joining the UK, I just wonder whether you wanted to reflect on that a bit more. You know, how you can use Open UK to give a UK-wide perspective and the values of seeing differences between countries maybe outside the current Epilepsy12 program, where you think that will take us ultimately.
Well, so one thing is for sure that of all the regional epilepsy networks, the most organized, structured, the regional epilepsy network with the most policies and procedures that effectively networking care to the greatest extent is the Scottish Epilepsy Network. So we can always learn from networks around the country. And clearly the NHS England operation is not designed to be held up as a paragon of everything that epilepsy care can possibly be, because actually we still need to learn from some of the other regions. So the first thing to say is that just because we are getting the attention of NHS England doesn't mean to say that we're in the best position. I think that Scotland and our representatives from Scotland and Wales tell us that the best thing that we can do to drive quality of care interest from the ministers and the health boards is to drive forward care with NHS England. So that's been the principle that we've been working on for the last few years. I hope that when all of the NHS England processes are in place, that that won't be the end of our work. That we continue to strive for improvement in quality across the whole of the UK.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think we'll end with that comment. Thanks, Richard.